Hailey Bieber just dropped a series of photos that have the internet absolutely losing its mind. And we need to talk about what's really going on here because this controversy is revealing something much bigger than just some glamorous pictures. If you're new here and you love diving into the drama while keeping it real, hit that subscribe button because we're serving up fresh content every single day. Hailey posted these incredibly sultry photographs recently, and while plenty of people are praising how stunning she looks, there's a vocal group that's come out swinging with criticism, and their main issue centers around one thing: she's a mother now. Yes, you read that right. A subset of people online, particularly some mothers, are expressing outrage that Hailey would pose for such provocative images now that she has a child. The photos themselves are undeniably gorgeous and artistic. They're shot in a moody, candlelit atmosphere that gives off major vintage glamour vibes. Hailey is positioned in ways that are sensual and confident, wearing lingerie and striking poses that celebrate her body and her confidence. The backlash didn't take long to materialize. Critics flooded comment sections arguing that as a new mother, Hailey should be more modest in her public image. Some comments suggested that these types of photos are inappropriate for someone with a child, questioning what her son will think when he grows up and sees these images. Others went further, implying that choosing to pose this way somehow conflicts with being a good parent or reflects poorly on her values. The underlying message from these critics seems to be that motherhood should come with a dress code, that once you have children, expressing sexuality or confidence in your body becomes somehow wrong or shameful. But let's pump the brakes here and really examine what's happening because this isn't actually new territory for Hailey at all. Throughout her entire career as a model, Hailey has done countless photo shoots that showcase her body. She's done beach shoots in bikinis, fashion campaigns in revealing clothing, and editorial work that's equally as sensual as these recent photos. This is literally part of her profession. She's been a model for years, working with major brands and photographers, and her portfolio has always included this type of content. So, why the sudden moral panic now? The answer is pretty clear when you think about it. The only thing that's changed is that Hailey became a mother. Her body is still her body. Her career is still her career. Her right to make choices about how she presents herself hasn't actually changed in any material way. But somehow, in many people's minds, motherhood is supposed to transform a woman into someone who covers up, tones it down, and prioritizes appearing modest above all else. This double standard is exhausting and frankly outdated. Nobody questions whether a father should stop posting shirtless gym photos after having kids. Male celebrities and regular dads alike post workout pictures, beach photos, and all manner of content showing their bodies without anyone suggesting they're being inappropriate or setting a bad example. The phrase dad bod exists as a celebrated concept, not a shameful one. Men are allowed to be fathers and still be seen as attractive, still show confidence in their bodies, still be sexual beings. But when women do the same thing, suddenly it's a problem that needs to be debated and criticized. Let's talk about what this really represents because it goes deeper than just one celebrity's photo shoot. This is about the persistent policing of women's bodies and the idea that women owe the world a certain type of behavior or appearance based on their life circumstances. When you become a mother, you don't stop being a person with your own identity, career, and sense of self. Motherhood is a beautiful part of life for many women, but it's not the only defining characteristic of who they are. Hailey is still a model, still a wife, still a friend, still a woman with her own thoughts and desires and professional goals. Posing for these photos doesn't make her any less of a mother. It doesn't mean she loves her child less, or that she's not focused on parenting. It simply means she's continuing to do her job and express herself in ways she finds fulfilling. The idea that these things are mutually exclusive is based on outdated and frankly sexist notions about how mothers should behave. There's also an element of projection happening in these criticisms that's worth addressing. When people look at someone like Hailey, who has worked hard to maintain her confidence in her career, and they respond with anger or judgment, it often says more about the person criticizing than the person being criticized. If someone sees these photos and their first instinct is to tear Hailey down, to question her parenting, to suggest she should be ashamed, that reaction is coming from somewhere internal. Maybe it's insecurity about their own bodies. Maybe it's frustration about choices they feel they couldn't make. Maybe it's jealousy about the freedom or confidence someone else displays. Whatever the root cause, directing that negativity outward doesn't solve anything. It just perpetuates a culture where women feel they have to shrink themselves, hide themselves, and constantly worry about being judged for every single choice they make. The reality is that inspiration and admiration are so much more productive than jealousy and criticism. When you see someone doing something you wish you could do, whether that's having confidence in their body, pursuing a career goal, or just living authentically, you have a choice in how to respond. You can choose to be inspired by it, to let it motivate you, to see it as proof that the thing you want is possible. Or you can choose to be bitter about it, to criticize them, to try to bring them down to make yourself feel better. One of those paths leads to growth and positivity, and the other leads nowhere good. Looking at these photos of Hailey, the healthy response for anyone who has complicated feelings about them would be to examine why they feel that way and what it reveals about their own relationship with their body, with sexuality, with motherhood, or with self-expression. It's also worth noting that much of the criticism directed at Hailey likely has roots in existing negativity toward her that has nothing to do with these photos specifically. Hailey has been the subject of intense scrutiny and comparison for years due to her relationship with Justin Bieber and the public's fascination with his previous relationship. She's dealt with constant hate, constant comparisons, and constant questioning of her worth and her choices. So when photos like these come out, some portion of the criticism is probably less about the photos themselves and more about people who already disliked her finding a new reason to express that dislike. That's not fair to her, and it's not a legitimate basis for moral judgment about whether these photos are appropriate. If the same photos were released by a celebrity who wasn't already dealing with that baggage, the response would likely be completely different. Let's also address the argument that some critics make about religion or personal values. If someone has religious beliefs or personal convictions that lead them to dress more modestly or present themselves differently, that's completely valid. Everyone has the right to make choices that align with their own values. But here's the key point. Those are personal choices. Your right to follow your own values doesn't extend to forcing those values onto other people. If you don't want to pose for photos like this, don't pose for photos like this. If this type of content doesn't align with what you want to see, you have the power to unfollow, to scroll past, to simply not engage with it. What you don't have the right to do is demand that someone else live according to your personal belief system. Hailey's choices about her body and her career are hers to make, and they don't require anyone else's approval. The conversation around these photos also highlights how much work still needs to be done when it comes to ending the culture of shaming women for their sexuality. Women should be able to feel sexy, to express their sexuality, to be confident in their bodies, and to make choices about how they present themselves without being called inappropriate or being told they're setting a bad example. Sexuality is a normal, healthy part of human existence. It doesn't disappear when you become a parent, and it shouldn't have to be hidden or suppressed to meet someone else's standard of what's acceptable. The idea that mothers specifically need to be desexualized, that they can't be both maternal and sensual, is rooted in deeply problematic views about women and their roles. Women are multidimensional human beings who can be many things at once. Mothers, professionals, sexual beings, friends, artists, and so much more. None of these identities cancel out the others. What's particularly frustrating about this situation is that it takes attention away from what should be celebrated. These are beautiful, artistic photographs. They represent a woman who is confident in herself and proud of her body. They showcase professional modeling work and creative photography. The fact that the conversation has been hijacked by people who want to shame and criticize rather than appreciate the artistry and the confidence on display is disappointing. Hailey worked hard to create this content and to feel good about herself, and she should be able to share it without being attacked for being a mother who dares to be attractive and confident. The energy being spent on tearing her down could be so much better spent supporting women in all their choices, celebrating body confidence, and working to dismantle the double standards that make situations like this possible in the first place. There's an important distinction that needs to be made here between legitimate concern and judgment disguised as concern. Some critics might frame their objections by saying they're worried about the message this sends or concerned about the impact on her child, but that's often just a way of dressing up personal disapproval in language that sounds more acceptable. Children are not harmed by having parents who are confident and comfortable with their bodies. Children are not harmed by parents who have careers that involve modeling or self-expression. What actually harms children is growing up in a world where they learn that their mothers should be ashamed of their bodies, where they absorb the message that women need to hide themselves to be respectable, where they see the people they love being torn down for making personal choices that hurt no one. If anything, having a mother who is confident and unapologetic about who she is can be an incredibly positive example. The broader point here is about autonomy and respect. Every person deserves the autonomy to make choices about their own body without having to justify those choices to strangers on the internet. Every person deserves to be treated with respect regardless of whether you personally agree with their choices or would make the same ones yourself. These are basic principles of treating other human beings with dignity, and they shouldn't go out the window just because someone is a celebrity or because they've chosen to have children. Hailey doesn't owe anyone an explanation for these photos. She doesn't need to defend her choices or prove that she's still a good mother despite having the audacity to feel good about herself and her body. The fact that she's being put in a position where she has to deal with this level of scrutiny and judgment is the problem, not her choices. Looking at the bigger picture, this controversy is a reminder of how far we still have to go in terms of gender equality and ending the policing of women's bodies. Every time a situation like this comes up, every time a woman is criticized for making choices about her own body and her own life, it reinforces harmful patterns and sends a message to other women that they need to be careful, need to tone it down, need to make themselves smaller to avoid criticism. That's not the world we should be creating. The world we should be creating is one where women can be fully themselves, can pursue their careers, can feel confident and sexy and powerful without having to worry about being shamed for it. It's a world where motherhood is celebrated, but doesn't become a cage that limits what women are allowed to do or be. It's a world where we support each other instead of tearing each other down, where we choose inspiration over jealousy, where we mind our own business when it comes to other people's personal choices that don't affect us. So, what should the takeaway be from all of this? First, Hailey Bieber has every right to pose for whatever photos she wants, and becoming a mother doesn't change that. Second, the criticism she's receiving is based on sexist double standards that need to be challenged and dismantled. Third, how other people choose to present themselves and live their lives is really none of our business unless it's causing actual harm, which these photos absolutely are not. Fourth, we all need to do better at supporting women instead of constantly judging them and holding them to impossible standards. And fifth, if you find yourself feeling angry or judgmental when you see someone else being confident and successful, that's an invitation to look inward and figure out what that reaction is really about rather than directing negativity outward. At the end of the day, these are just photos. They're beautiful photos of a beautiful woman who happens to be a model by profession and a mother by choice. Neither of those things negates the other, and both deserve to be respected. The conversation around them reveals much more about our society's ongoing issues with how we view women than it does about Hailey herself. If you made it this far, I appreciate you sticking with me through this whole discussion, and if you're not already subscribed, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss out when we dive into the latest stories and keep it real about what's actually going on beneath the surface of these viral moments.